Every year I travel about a month, and I wish if I have only one single good lens that can do it all, from wide to telephoto, because I usually carry a couple of lenses in similar scenarios. And you know what's better than carrying light gear? Unfortunately, there is no such a lens that can do that. But there are two lenses that somehow fit the gap, and I own them for a long time. Here we have the 24-105mm Sony f4 and Tamron 28-200mm f2.8 to 5.6, and this lens is quite interesting. Even though it has a variable aperture, the image quality is so great. Last year I reviewed the same Tamron 28-200mm versus Sony 24-240mm, and I ended up keeping the Tamron 28-200mm. And many of you guys asked me to review the same Tamron lens with Sony 24-105mm, and that's why we're making this video. I totally understand that some of you might pick the new Tamron 35-150mm f2 to 2.8. It's too heavy and too expensive, which is not the point of this video. Oh mahi, and today we'll put these lenses on test in different scenarios, so you make up your mind which one suits you the best. Now, let's get started. Alright, keep an eye on the timeline below if you like to jump to a specific part. I'm gonna be testing the two lenses in travel photography, food photography, portraiture, and indeed some videos. So first I brought the lenses to Dubai Expo exhibition and I started testing these guys side by side. Now we'll show you some sample images and we'll discuss the difference in a moment. We'll see you in a while. Honestly, in many images, I see the image quality is quite similar out of both lenses. And a few times I feel that Sony 24-105mm f4 is a little bit sharper than Tamron at f2.8 and f4. But I cannot confirm that because I also see sometimes Tamron is sharper than Sony wide open. Being that said, both lenses' sharpness cannot compete with a prime lens. Let's say these guys are doing good, while the prime lenses are exceptional. Alright, here at 65mm f4, the image on the left is sharper, which is Sony, while Tamron is fine. Well, I'm not sure if that's because of the lens sharpness or the focus point is not the same in both images. Anyway, Tamron does a good job at 200mm f5.6. See here for example, this is 105mm f4 versus 200mm f5.6. Tamron is sharper at this point. Indeed, I'm amazed how this Tamron lens features a really good sharpness at 150 and 200mm. Usually lenses with that versatile zoom and variable aperture cannot reach that sharpness level. But here we go. The 24-105mm is well known as a good budget zoom lens. Events and the travel photographers, including me, prefer zoom lenses because we don't have the time to keep changing lenses or we want to travel light. So I tried the Tamron 28-200mm in many paid event photography and worked well for me, even though it has a variable aperture. So at 50mm we get f3.5, at 70mm f4, at 85mm f4.5, and at 125mm f5. I love making food photography and I always shoot at f8 and f11 when possible, and in some cases, focus stacking is required. I make commercial food photography and the prime lenses do not work the best, while zoom lenses are highly recommended for many reasons. First, you cannot change the setup, and moving the tripod forward, backward, up or down is not the best option as well. Anyway, today we'll test both lenses at f4 and f8 and we'll check if there is any difference. So I made a sample setup here at my studio and let's get an idea of how both lenses perform in such a situation. Okay, here we have ambient full FL80 LED RGB light set at daylight white balance with the P70 foldable softbox. And basically I chose to go with a continuous light because it works the best for this video. Alright, here with this example at f4, we have Sony on the left and Tamron on the right. f4 isn't the ideal aperture settings, however it somehow works for overhead shots. Both images look awesome, and I somehow see Tamron is slightly sharper than Sony at f4. And we have less vignetting in Sony wide open. Also, we notice that Tamron creates warmer images even though the same white balance was used in both lenses 5700 Kelvin. This image is at f5.6, and obviously here we'll not compare the sharpness because the focus points are not exactly accurate. Now at f8, here I fixed and matched the white balance in both images. Again, this is overhead example and I kinda see the same image quality in both lenses. That's interesting. So technically Tamron is good as Sony in food photography. As you know, optical steady shot is quite nice when shooting handheld, however it gets even better when it's combined with the sensor image stabilization. So here we got both lenses handheld at different focal length. And did I mention that Sony 24-105mm f4 features optical steady shot? Indeed, that helps in getting better performance handheld. This type of lenses mostly work for every scenario. And indeed, I prefer having portraiture taken with the prime lenses as they are sharper and offer significant background separation. But what if only one of these lenses I'm testing today is the available option? Okay, we'll check that out. Alright, I shot both images roughly at 100mm, and with Tamron we get a 4.5 at the same focal length. So there is no difference in bokeh and background blur. And also the sharpness and image quality are quite similar in both lenses wide open. In-hand overview. The first difference when getting both lenses in hand is the build quality. I'm not saying that Tamron build is bad, however the Sony 24-105mm is a G lens and shares similar build quality as the G Master series. See here for example, this is Tamron lens hood, and we easily see a sign of usage. Although there is no actual scratches, it seems like a surface got in touch with the body and left these marks. And the lens body suffers from the same build flow as well, while I don't face that problem with the 24-105 Sony. It's built really well. Both lenses' autofocus motors are noise-free and completely silent, and both Tamron and Sony autofocus is decent. I had no problem using the lenses for a long time, and now both lenses' size is quite similar at minimum focal length. The 24-105mm is a bit chunkier. Anyway, Tamron becomes a little bit taller at maximum extension, I mean at 200mm. And speaking of the size, the 24-105mm Sony is a little bit heavier than Tamron. I mean about 110 grams 4 ounces. Sony features a 77mm filter size, while Tamron shares 67mm, like most of Tamron E-mount lenses. And finally, Tamron has no buttons except the zoom lock to keep the lens in place at 28mm. Sony, on the other hand, has manual to autofocus switch button and another button to control the image stabilization. Minimum focus distance is a different story. Tamron is well known for wide macro capability. See here for example, this is how much we can get close with Sony at 24mm, and this is Tamron minimum focus distance at 28mm. It's fantastic. Imagine how many new perspectives you can reach. Indeed, it's a game changer. However, at 100mm, both lenses' minimum focus distance is quite similar. And Tamron is not powerful anymore as it was at 28mm. Alright, at 200mm Tamron, we need to step back a few inches, and therefore we get roughly the same composition and framing as the 100mm. I like to know my lens's sharpness quality, however, this test might be boring for some of you. So feel free to skip this part if you are satisfied with the overall review. Alright, now wide open at 24mm f4 and 28mm f2.8. In the center, Sony f4 is slightly sharper than Tamron f2.8. Tamron is a bit sharper at corners. And at f4, 24 and 28mm, Tamron is remarkably sharper at sides and corners. At f5.6 and f8, I see Sony is always slightly sharper in the center, while Tamron is remarkably sharper everywhere else off-center. And I got the same results at 50mm. Now at 105mm, f4 and f4.5, Tamron is remarkably sharper in the center, while we got roughly the same image quality at f5.6 and f8. Now when testing chromatic aberration on both lenses at 24 and 28mm, I see Tamron is cleaner than Sony 24-105mm at 24mm f4. And this is, by the way, Tamron at f2.8 versus Sony f4. Whereas at 105mm, Sony f4 is remarkably cleaner than Tamron wide open at f4.5. So after having both lenses for more than a year, I can't say one is better than the other. There are no doubt that Sony 24-105mm is a great lens, and the purpose of this video is to check if Tamron 28-200mm is a good alternative. Indeed, Tamron is not a replacement, but it works better in some situations, and basically that's the purpose of this video, so you make up your mind. It's a good all-in-one travel lens for landscape photographers, and most probably will sell my 24-105mm because I have many other lenses in my kit, and honestly I did not use this guy for a while. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful, and bump that subscribe button for more camera gear reviews. Thank you for watching, guys. This was Oma, and see you in another one.